Episode 10 of WP Bosses, the first episode for 2017. We have Elliot Condon. Am I saying that right?
You are? Yep, correct.
Excellent. We have Elliot Condon from the extra famous plugin Advanced Custom Fields. We have Tracey, we have Nik, we have Yavisht, and let's all introduce ourselves. Tracey, who are you?
I'm Tracey Kemp. I'm a WordPress developer on the Gold Coast, and that's about it. I use Advanced Custom Fields a lot, so I'm looking forward to this chat.
Excellent. Nik, who are you?
Well, I'm Nik Cree. I have Positive Business Online. I'm a WordPress developer, and I specialise with the Genesis framework. So I also am an avid fan of Advanced Custom Fields and use it. And I have seen it used and abused and all sorts of things. In fact, I've seen it used as a replacement for WordPress CMS. So there's some really interesting stuff there too. So, but
excellent.
Yeah, love it and enjoying having a chat today.
Cool. Yavisht, am I saying that right?
Yes, that's right. Hi, I'm Yavisht, and I'm a WordPress developer from Geelong. And I work for a creative agency called Grindstone Creative. And I'm the biggest fan of ACF, and I'm really proud to say that.
Awesome. Elliot, say hello and tell people who you are.
Hi, I'm Elliot, developer of Advanced Custom Fields, and that's about it.
Awesome.
As simple as that, I think.
Very good. Let's get started. And as usual, that includes Meetup news. Tracey, what's going around Australia?
Meetup news. We have the WordPress Melbourne user group is meeting Wednesday. That is tomorrow. And that looks like they're just having a bit of a general chat. Doesn't really say too much about what's going on. It's going to be business focused. There's a couple of guests, and also Chris Burgess will be talking about SSL and HTTPS. So that should be good. And also tomorrow night, the Sunshine Coast Meetup group are meeting at Spark Bureau, and they're going to be talking about rebranding and converting customers is not what you think, and that's by Luke Carbis. Thursday, WordPress Brisbane meeting, and Cameron, where Cameron is Cameron Jones is talking about 7 free third-party services every website needs, and we've had Cameron on our show before, so some people will remember him. So that should be a good one.
He's famous now.
He is famous. On Thursday as well, the North Sydney meetup is talking about contributing to WordPress. And on next Tuesday, WordPress Adelaide is having their first meetup of the year, and they're just doing a bit of a welcome and a bit of a spring cleaning and New Year's resolutions for your WordPress site session. And then in their dev talk, they're talking about actions and filters. So that should be good. That's it for really the next week.
Cool. I'm just going to just have a little shameless plug here. I'm starting a meetup in Port Macquarie, which is going to run on the last Thursday of the month, beginning this month. I haven't published the event yet because I'm still confirming the venue. But yeah, if you're in the area, or even if you're not in the area, looking at you Gold Coasters, feel free to join.
Have a Skype connection or something so we can actually be there, or
that's a possibility. Yep, we'll put that on
we'll just jump in the car and drive down.
Oh, that'll work too. Yeah, good idea. Yeah. Cool. Nik, do you have any business tips for us today?
Well, actually, I have a tip which is just hot off the press, brand new today. It's a Google thing. And with Google Search Console hooked up to WordPress sites, if your WordPress version is out of date, they will send you a message, version's out of date. So that's coming from Google. So WordPress has obviously had a fairly big impact in the web space if Google takes notice and sends notifications. The other thing too is SSL. Google doesn't require it, but it's really starting to push that so that people install their SSL certificates, particularly for the new version of Chrome which is coming out. So the new version of Chrome will actually say if your website isn't a secure website or doesn't have a SSL certificate, it will say that it's insecure. So for those that are running particularly shopping carts or sites there that do gather information, people's personal information, it's going to be a pretty important thing to just install a SSL as just as the default. And with Let's Encrypt out there, that makes it real easy to do it, and it's free as well. So there you go. That's sort of WordPress, but it's Google, and it's Google sort of pushing into WordPress territory. So yeah, just good to actually catch up on that and take note.
So that's actually really important for anyone running a WordPress site, because I noticed today going to some WordPress login screens that it's showed the not secure tag already. So if anyone's running WordPress and you need to log into WordPress, obviously, then you really should have SSL to protect you logging in.
Mm. Thanks, Nick. SSL. Get it. Do it now. It's important. The plugin of the, I was going to say the plugin of the week, but we haven't been doing this every week. So the plugin of the episode is actually ties into ACF. It's called ACF Theme Code, and it's by Aaron Rutley, who's another developer from the Melbourne area, I believe.
Yep.
And Ben, yeah, and Ben. We tried to twist his arm to get Aaron on the show, but we'll track him down later. Anyway, what this plugin does is it's an extension for advanced custom fields. And if you're familiar with that plugin, when you create custom fields, you add bits of code into the page template, and where you get that code is from the documentation on the Advanced Custom Fields website. And what this plugin does is it pulls that code from the documentation into the dashboard right underneath where you create the fields. Tell me if I'm wrong.
That's right.
That's right. Okay, cool. That's what that plugin does. It's by Aaron Rutley from Australia, and Ben, and Ben. So check that one out. If you use Advanced Custom Fields, it will save you some time. All right. Paul's not here, so Paul can't obviously talk. Elliot.
Yes.
First question. What did you do before you started working with the web? I can see some skateboards there. Were you a professional skateboarder?
Was not professional. No. Before web, I was probably working in cafes. I was probably cleaning dishes. Yeah, when I was back in uni, I was working, cafe jobs, and then discovered I could be doing websites on the side and getting a lot more bang for buck doing work that way. So yeah, I kind of got into the whole freelance business just through chance, maybe through connections at the time. There was friends of friends looking for websites, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's kind of how I got into the web world. Slowly through maybe Flash back in the day, kind of Flash animation, Flash websites, banners. I think I creeped in from that era.
So did people?
Yeah, I guess so. Like as far as HTML, PHP, JavaScript is concerned, yeah, self-taught. There was some programming components to my multimedia degree at uni, But that was, I mean, Java-based. So I guess the logic side of things was taught, but not the actual languages. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. So you're obviously building sites before WordPress. How did you stumble upon WordPress, and how long ago would that have been, do you think?
That is a really good question. Stumbled onto WordPress. Do you know what? I actually can't remember. And it would have been maybe 10 years ago. It would have been 10 years ago, and I cannot remember. I wish I should have looked into that before coming on. I do remember working with some different CMSs at a few agencies before WordPress was more commonly used, I guess, in agencies. But yeah, I actually can't remember the first website. Someone must have got me to do some tinkering on a website that was using WordPress. And I do remember the UI was, the navigation was the top. I think it was back in version 2 of WordPress. Yeah, but it's so long ago. It's so long ago, and I've been so involved with WordPress and ACF now. That's what my focus is, and I genuinely can't remember the start of it. So anyway.
No, that's okay. That's fair enough.
So are you, with ACF, is it a full-time thing that takes your time, or are you building websites as well, or are you doing other work and ACF's just on the side, or?
No, not at all. So ACF is my life. It's all that I work on. I don't think I've taken on a job or worked at an agency for maybe 3 or 4 years now. It's just been full-time ACF. And if I could clone myself, I would. There's a lot of work to still be done, even working on it full-time. Yeah, there's always more work to be done, but so rewarding to work on your own project and get such a positive response from it as well. It's very satisfying. It's really good.
Can we just go back a step? For anyone who's listening who isn't familiar with ACF, can you give us a rundown on what it is, what it does, and who it's for? Sure.
So ACF is a developer tool to make more areas of your website editable, essentially. We can go a bit further and say it's a UI for custom fields. Custom field just being, I guess, a term for extra data, extra content, if you will. So WordPress has built into it metadata already, post meta, term meta, user meta. And a lot of themes and plugins use this. But there's not a great UI, or there's not a source of different field types for meta that's built into WordPress. It's absolute just basic text-based content, and do with that what you will. So ACF, I guess, is just like a UI layer between the developer and WordPress itself, just to make extra content fields, extra input fields when you're editing a post or editing a user. I guess it prides itself on a really easy to use template code, template functions to retrieve that data, and also on a pretty rock solid engine to make it all happen in the back end.
Awesome. That sums it up.
I think so. It's really hard. I've never been able to get the elevator pitch down for ACF. It's very confusing, but also very simple at the same time. But yeah.
Yeah, it can do a lot, but it can do as much as you need it to be.
Exactly.
To do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did advanced custom fields come about? Was that to scratch your own itch, or was that, you saw a gap in the market, or, how did it come about?
This one I do actually remember. So I was taking on some contractor work at the time. This was when I'd first started using WordPress, so maybe I must have been maybe a year or 2 into WordPress. we were using other CMSs that had these UIs for create. I mean, a lot of, you know, larger scale CMSs at the time, they had custom fields built into them. And so, you know, for a certain post type, you could create all these different input fields, and that's, I guess, why agencies were using them, because, well, that's worked and you could make websites with them. And so we were building websites, and I was like, wow, this is great, the way that we can add all these extra fields to creating a news article or an event or a post or whatever. And I was just thinking, you know, this would be great for my freelance WordPress stuff. There were some custom field plugins at the time that I was using, and they worked, but they were fairly hacked together. They weren't professional looking. You'd hand them over to a client and you would not be very thrilled that a client has to use that. You'd be probably worried that it might break. And so, yeah, I guess I saw a gap in the market, or just a need for ACF to exist. Just a more rock solid custom field plugin. Yeah, but never actually went into it thinking it would be a business. Or a company or a career or anything like that, just because I wanted to make this plugin. And I think like maybe after 6 months, I released it as a free plugin. I was using it myself so long and using it on like internal websites. God knows what version 1 of ACF actually looks like. It would be very different. But yeah, eventually put it onto the WordPress.org repo. I think that was the first plugin I ever made or released. And it was a total success. Got instantly huge amount of downloads and feature requests, and everything just kind of snowballed from there.
Wow, amazing. That's really the only plugin you've done. Just got it right.
It's the only real plugin I've done. I mean, I think if you look on my page, there's a few other like small plugins that I've tinkered with in the past, but nothing that I work on at the moment. It's just ACF, ACF Pro, and everything in between. Yeah.
Well, I know a lot of people are definitely appreciative.
Yeah,
I've been asking for people to send us questions for you, and the majority of them are just saying, no questions, just thanks heaps. You've saved them lots of time and made it possible for them to build projects that they otherwise probably wouldn't have. So,
I mean, how good's that? That's like the best feeling ever, when
very good.
someone's genuinely happy with a piece of software and makes what they're doing possible. That's awesome. So good.
Yeah. Yavish, do you have any questions?
I recently checked one of his other plugins. It's called Live Edit. And I was really impressed by what it could do. I hope one day ACF Pro users could have that as a feature, like inbuilt,
Cool.
where they could just drop the code on the front end and users could just edit and see it being edited on the front end as they updated it. So we actually used that for one of our websites. We had to modify it a bit, but yeah, it works well with repeaters, flexible fields. I'm not sure if I've tested it with other date fields and other fields as such, but yeah, it works well. But I would request Elliot to work on that plugin as well, if he can, and add that as, you know, like a pro feature of ACF. I think that'll stand out.
Cool. Sure. Well, I like the feature request. Live Edit was a kind of attempt at doing front end editing in kind of a sidebar. This was before the customizer, actually, I believe, or at least very early stages of the customizer. But essentially the same thing, a side panel that comes out and you could edit content. I think front-end editing is a really interesting topic. So many people love it, but also you've got to appreciate at the same time so many people don't love it. I mean, we have a back end to WordPress for a reason. And in some scenarios, that's great. And also in others, it's probably better to have a front end. It's an interesting area that I think might have some development over the next couple of years with this front end editing, more interactive content editing. I think the bridge between back end and front end will slowly get more blurred. And yeah, we'll have probably a more seamless editing experience. So I'm not sure if I would go back to editing on, working on live edit myself, but maybe staying in tune with the direction that WordPress goes for content editing, which most likely will go towards the front end anyway. I'm sure that in a couple of years, it'll be very integrated. But that's cool that you enjoyed using live edit, because that was a fun little project. And a really difficult project, because editing content on the front end is very difficult just from a UI perspective, just because there are restrictions on the amount of space that you can take to put in these fields and all the issues that come with overriding CSS and JavaScript and all that kind of stuff. So it's a really tricky space.
Yeah, and plus it sort of does a dynamic AJAX call, and it sort of updates stuff on the back end, and it was pretty common. I tried to study how it was done, but yeah, I think it's a great plugin. I would encourage everyone to try it out.
I like the feedback. That's good. Well, maybe, I mean, if enough people jump on board, maybe
we did something really cool with it. Like we have this, we made this dashboard page for every logged in user, and they could just have their quick links. So they can set their own bookmarks, and they were actually custom fields, which could be edited by the live edit plugin. So they could log into their dashboard, edit their quick links, and then just access. So the quick links basically become the sidebar on the other pages. So they could just, they don't have to go to the back end, and they can just do basic, very simple edits.
Yeah,
so we used it like that. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, nice one.
Cool. I've got here's a question from the famous Cameron Jones from the chat. ACF is a one-time payment, whereas most plugins are subscription-based. How does that affect your cash flow?
What was the end of that question?
How does that affect your cash flow?
Oh, right. It's a really interesting topic. I don't think it impacts my cash flow, because there's an amazing amount of new developers every day around the world, starting with WordPress. I love the idea of the 99-cent app that's just a one-off purchase, but there's millions of people around the world. So if you sell it 1 million times, then there's your $1 million. So I think that was the approach I went with when I was pricing ACF. And I think it would be difficult for me to change that to a subscription base now after establishing it so much. So I don't think I have the choice of changing, which is, I guess, reassuring for everyone who's purchased a license. But also at the same time, I quite like the idea of just a one-off purchase. But that's just me. Like at the same time, I pay for a lot of yearly and monthly subscription services, and I don't mind doing that either. I think it's just because I originally chose to do that, and now that's fairly concreted in. But yeah, I could, if it did change to a yearly subscription, I mean, that would be amazing financially, but that's not what it's about for me. So happy to keep it as it is, which is good.
Cool, good answer.
Yeah, sure.
There was another question from Sridhar, who asked in Slack, and I think you might have already kind of answered this with Yavish's question. What's your stance on integrating ACF into the customizer? Did you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, for sure. So proper integration with the customer is something that I will be looking at this year. This year is going to be amazing for ACF. There's some big milestones to achieve. And having a real attempt at the customizer is on the to-do list. as far as like big milestones go. So ACF Pro is already working with the customizer for widgets. Because you can edit widgets in the customizer, it was actually very easy to get the custom fields into those edit forms. So I don't believe it would be very difficult to integrate into the customizer at all. It just comes down to what's the best way to do it, because obviously we don't want to bloat that customizer with all these forms that don't need to be there, and how do you restrict some users to only editing some content. Yeah, so just a few decisions have to be worked out, but it'll happen for sure. As long as the customizer is still actively being used, then ACF will head in that direction for sure. Yeah.
Maybe just use the options pages and link that to the customizer.
I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah. I was actually looking for a solution where I would like the custom options to be visible in the customizer.
Yeah, so all parts of ACF, when we do go down the customizer route, like all parts of ACF, so user, post, comment, taxonomy term, all of that metadata and options page, it would all have to work with the customizer. And I guess it would all have to change depending on what page you're viewing. If you're viewing a post or viewing a user, I guess you would just get those relevant fields pop up in the customizer and you can edit them from the front end.
Right.
There's obviously some UI issues already with the width available. The customizer is quite small, but I mean, if you expanded that, then that problem is solved. So
yes,
I think
like it's a setting in the field itself as to whether it appears in the customizer or not. So you could, like the developer could only show the ones that they think are relevant for the client to be there. Exactly.
Yeah. So there's always options, but it's funny. It's a can of worms. It might seem easy to add it to the customizer, but we're coming up with all these things that have to come in. So at the end of the day, I hate to bloat ACF with any setting or anything that doesn't need to be there. I like to run it as minimal as possible. But that said, customizer it's pretty integral to WordPress now. It's a lot of everything, I'm going to say, would be using it. So yeah, it'll be exciting to see ACF in there working. Yeah, it'll be cool. So this year, definitely, there'll be some news about that for sure. Yeah.
Nik, you're muted. Were you trying to say something?
No, I was coughing.
Oh.
Do you have a question, Nik?
Yeah, it's probably more, I mean, ACF is such a powerful tool, and it's sort of, I guess it's one of those tools that is almost too powerful. In the wrong hands, you can really sort of create havoc, and in the right hands, you can really create a really good experience and helps development. Have you got any, I suppose, do's and don'ts with, really how to use ACF, particularly sort of some of the don'ts, so, people are not heading down the wrong track with it?
Yeah. Good question. So, I mean, look, ACF at the end of the day is allowing you to save and load text-based content, or it's all text-based when it goes into the database, I guess. To and from the database via PHP. So PHP is a beautiful language. I love it. Not all developers do, but I think it's one of the nicest languages to work in because it can be so destructive. Some people get really scared by PHP because it is a destructive language. You can change a variable whenever you want to. There's basically no rules. But at the same time, just like JavaScript, it can be treated as a very clean environment to work in with unlimited possibilities. And that's why I like PHP and JavaScript as languages. So my tips with working with ACF would just to have a very thorough understanding of how PHP executes, how it works, how WordPress actually loads in files, how to debug PHP, and how to check your code, your variables line by line. Make sure that you're not ever assuming what the content is, that you can confirm, yes, okay, this is an array or this is a string, and not just to echo it out and hope for the best, because you'll probably crash the server. Obviously, don't work on a live website. That goes without saying. Obviously, have a local or a staging to test the code thoroughly before releasing it onto a live site. But I think those days are behind us now that we all use, hopefully all use Git in our workflow or something similar. And it's all a lot more structured, I guess. But yeah, just have a good understanding of PHP. ACF at the end of the day is very simple. It's just like WordPress gives you functions like get the title and the title. Well, ACF has get field and the field. So basically, you can output it straight away, or you can return it to a variable and do whatever you'd like with that variable. But obviously, you know, with any PHP language, it's super destructive. You know, you could get something that could crash your server if you, let's try to think. I think even outputting an array, you'll get a warning to string that might disrupt your front-end rendering with errors. You could get a PHP unset or array index doesn't exist error that could crash PHP as well. Yeah, but you know, it's a very sanitized plugin, if you will. Everything, there's not really much that can go wrong. All you can ever do is make a mistake in PHP, and there's no difference using ACF than just using raw HTML or PHP code. It could be exactly the same.
Yeah, and I suppose that's you know, that's just normal practice, and I guess it's normal learning practice as well, as people you know, get into it and start to get their hands dirty with PHP. Like you newer developers, you soon find out what works and what doesn't work, and it's then exploring the Uncle Google to find out actually what do I do wrong.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
listening to your yeah. I mean, you must get a lot of feedback from people also about what they've done with advanced custom fields. What's the coolest project that you've seen that someone's done?
The coolest project? I see a lot of great page builders being built at the moment using the flexible content field. Some really interesting stuff. People are doing kind of live previews in the back end of how that module is rendered. But I do remember one guy was chatting to me. They were using ACF to populate data into essentially a WordPress website running as a JSON API endpoint. And they were hooking this up to robotics that was reading from this website to then function. And so they were using ACF to enter in, I don't know, coordinate data maybe, a whole bunch of stuff using repeater fields and text fields. I thought that was really cool. I mean, because that's not a normal use of a WordPress website. You know, they were actually reading this JSON data into something completely different. But yeah, mainly just a lot of cool stuff happening with page builders. Yep.
Awesome. Aaron Rutley from ACF Theme Code's done some awesome stuff too. You've seen his stuff, haven't you? Booking systems and like, you know, awesome, amazing stuff.
Yeah, me and Aaron were chatting probably a couple of days ago about page builders, just the whole topic of them. And he was showing me some stuff that he just threw together with ACF, and he's essentially got a page builder running with a couple lines of code. The stuff he builds is pretty amazing, actually. He's got a really good grasp of content entry. And I think that's a really interesting area, especially that WordPress are moving into, with thoughts of redesigning how, you know, the WYSIWYG editor or post editor actually works. That's kind of our next main step with WordPress. So yeah, he's done some pretty cool stuff, actually.
I love it when he just throws together bits of code and just makes amazing things.
Yeah, he does it way too easily.
I know.
Yeah. But it is easy. That's the other thing. At the same time,
Yeah.
it's easy to do this as long as you kind of just have that understanding of the workflow of the execution of code. Once your head really knows what's going on, you can throw that code together. It's really cool. Yeah.
But I think the best thing about ACF actually is that even if you don't have that understanding of how the code works and stuff, you've got that understanding and you've built that plugin so that other people can take that and build on it in a really easy way. And people that don't have that understanding of code can still make amazing things. And I think that if I could take a guess at why ACF has been such a success, I would say that would be the thing. It's because it takes something that used to be so complicated and makes it really easy.
For sure. I mean, I think that's kind of the biggest important factor to any software. If you can find something that is frustrating or difficult and make it a one-click or make it easy, people will love that, no matter how simple or complicated it is. As long as you make it easy and reassuring, then I think that's good software. Hey.
Absolutely.
Chris from the chat has a question.
Yes.
Plans to integrate widths into flexible content fields.
Yes, we do, or I do. There are plans to do some interesting page builder-esque stuff with the flexible content field, because at the moment it is lacking rows and columns, if you'd like. So that's another milestone for this year, is to have a look into how we address that, because I think once we've got rows and columns working, the flexible content field will become more of a proper page builder, and you'll be able to do some much more interesting stuff. Yeah. So good things are on their way. Good things are on their way.
Anything else on its way?
So this year, I guess the major milestones are to release the free version of ACF 5. So for the last 2 years, I've been working on ACF Pro, which is ACF V version 5 plus the 4 premium add-ons, which is now actually 5. There's 5 premium main components to ACF Pro. And so that version 5 engine, which isn't publicly available at the moment, that will be released this year. So currently on WordPress.org, you've got ACF version 4.4. I'm going to say 11, as I'll look that up. And so version 5, obviously a huge jump, and almost 2 years of development in that jump. So that's going to be really exciting. I'll be announcing that soon. I've been putting that off for way too long just because new features keep coming in. I get excited and build them first. But work is already in the direction towards releasing version 5 as a free update, which is going to be super exciting. That'll come out on GitHub first and allow developers to start using it to make sure all of their add-ons are compatible before it gets released on the .org. And just before anyone asks, version 5 is compatible with version 4. There's no breaking change. All code works. No websites break. We've all been using ACF Pro for years, and we've had no major issues. So that will be good. So the free version of ACF 5, that's a major milestone. We want to integrate into the REST API with proper, ACF endpoints, or however we do that. Obviously, the page builder functionality, that will be really good fun. And I'm sure 101 other things will pop up during the year, but they're the major ones. I think there was another one mentioned before, but they're the kind of major ones.
Sounds awesome.
Just,
It was
just
a
wondering,
non-AC.
Alex,
Sorry, go, Nick.
is it just you, or do you have other people that are working on the plugin as well, or this is just all you?
It's actually just me. I do have people that help me with support, and I obviously do get the occasional pull request, submitting some code. I would like to say I get a lot of help from my users through support tickets. We work together to fix bugs and that kind of stuff. But I guess at the end of the day, I am the sole developer on ACF, which is cool. It is actually totally manageable. And it's, yeah, I quite enjoy working by myself. So yeah, just myself. So on the support front, I've got a few guys overseas who help out on the community forum, just to make sure that everyone is getting some help there. And my actual email-based support ticket service is done locally. There's a company just down the road, essentially, and they do amazing work with software support. Yeah. So support is definitely something that I would not be able to maintain myself. If I tried to do the support myself, I would literally get no code or no development done on the plugin. I mean, support is an amazing part of a product, but it's time consuming, very time consuming. So unfortunately, I did have to get, well, fortunately, maybe the wrong word, but I do have help on that front.
Yeah, it's probably fortunate because, I mean, I think that whole support function, whether you're a developer, you know, just building websites, or as you're doing a plugin to plugin, just that to and fro with support just takes an inordinate amount of time. So yeah, I think it's good sort of having other people to handle that.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's nice because it's exhausting as well, logging into websites, debugging issues, trying to figure out what's going wrong and why, and the edge cases. And by the time you've done all that, your brain is spent. So yeah, you definitely need help on that front.
Yeah, just for sanity.
Just for sanity. Yeah, exactly.
Another listener question from Raver DK. Thanks for tuning in, by the way. For a rename field function that loops over the database and fixes names for the values.
Okay, so I guess this is talking about when you've created a field called field 1, you've entered a whole bunch of values throughout the database, and then you've renamed it to field 2. Well, your database has all of these field 1 values and no field 2 values. That would be a great idea. I think that kind of thing would have to be built into maybe a tools section within ACF just to quickly rename. I think that's been a highly requested feature, and that would be super useful as well. So yes, let's look into that as well. This is the problem with working on ACF. There's so many good ideas and they're all useful. That's the problem. But I would like to hope that there's actually a third-party plugin for that. And if there isn't, someone should really jump on that, because that would just be a super useful tool.
What are your dogs' names?
My dogs?
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know that you knew that I had dogs. I've got Moss and Moose.
Moss and wouldn't that get confusing?
Moss and Moose. Well, yes, very. It seemed like a good idea at the time. You know, it rolls off the tongue type thing. It's easy to yell. Didn't realize that it would be very hard to teach the second dog his name. Yeah. So, but Moose is good. Moose is the young one. He's only 7 months old, and yeah, it's pretty funny. It's pretty, but they totally know their own names. But yeah, it was a bit harder.
Does that explain the moose on the wall in the background?
No, that is actually, because I'm reading the comments as well, that's completely by chance. That was just a random Christmas gift. think. Yeah.
All right, I'm fresh out of questions.
I've got one.
Yeah.
So did you ever suspect when you started ACF that it would become so popular, and how has it actually changed your life and your lifestyle?
Good question. I never thought it would ever even be used. I didn't think it would be popular at all. And it has completely changed my life in like amazing ways. I'm so grateful for working on this project. It changed everything. I don't even know where to start. So being able to, leave a 9-to-5 job just to work on your own project that is so rewarding and satisfying. You'd happily do it for free, but then to also get paid for it as well. That's the best. Like that is just, yeah, that's amazing. So very content. It's definitely, yeah, just changed my life to feel very content and happy with what I'm doing. Yeah.
Awesome. Sorry, go, Robey.
That was Nik.
It was Nik.
That was me. I was just going to say, I suppose it's just one of those questions that probably a few people have had on their lips there, and ACF almost is as integral to WordPress as WordPress core is to WordPress. So the natural sort of thing is thinking about, well, do you think that at some stage ACF would be acquired and become part of it?
Well, WordPress are working on their own custom field API, the field API. So yeah, they're actively developing their own version of ACF, 100%.
So how does that affect you then?
Not at all. I can't wait to see what they do. I think it's going to be amazing, whatever happens. Look, there's obviously a chance that the custom field API is released and it's a huge hit, and slowly people stop using ACF. And if that's how that plays out, then that's amazing, because it can just go out on a high. ACF was amazing and it got replaced by a core functionality. I'm totally fine with that. I'm so happy to work on this project, and that would be a nice ending to it. If the custom field API doesn't get released, well, then I will continue working on ACF either way. And if the custom field API is released and people still choose to stay with ACF just because maybe there's features that they need, or it's just so much part of their workflow that they would prefer to stay with ACF, well, then I'll stay working on it either way. So it's not up to me, but I'm just kind of looking forward to seeing what happens. That'll be interesting, because that will obviously change quite a lot. Yeah, it might reduce the amount of support tickets maybe. That could be cool.
That's a good perspective. So, you leave your options open, and it's, I guess, a fresh perspective and thinking, well, whatever happens, happens, and there's always a new direction, new ways things can go. And I guess that's all part of the GPL experience.
Yeah. You've got no control over the web or what the next biggest thing is or how long something will be fashionable for. I'm just really happy to be working on ACF now and having, such a good response from the users, and being able to use ACF actually as just an awesome project for personal, development, not only in just programming, but in business sense as well. It's been amazing. But even programming, just having this sandbox to literally write the best code you can possibly do, and then spend the next couple of years perfecting that code. That's the best. That's like everything you want.
What have you learned over the last few years, and if you did it again, would you do anything differently, or are you just totally cool with everything that's happened?
Yeah, no, that's true. So there's been some changes along the way, mainly to my structure of the premium content. So previously I was selling individual plugins for these premium features, these add-ons, and now I've combined them all into ACF Pro. So one change looking back would maybe just to go with a Pro model, just with a free and a Pro, and not to do a free plus all of the small individual premium add-ons. From a developer's point of view, the maintenance is so much easier just having a Pro bundled plugin. You don't have to worry about cross-compatibility and out-of-sync versions, which is totally possible to manage if you have an amazing infrastructure, say WooCommerce, which has an amazing library of these paid add-ons, but it's got such a great foundation in the core plugin to handle all of these small add-ons. So I would say, yeah, probably just go straight ahead with the free and Pro. I wouldn't bother with the small add-ons. But then in saying that, I grew those add-ons over time. So everything happens for a reason, and it might have been quite difficult to have a Pro version starting out. Obviously, if I could go back and talk to myself 4 years ago, I would ask myself, what on earth was I thinking with X amount of code here and there? And I would teach myself how to code better and what not to do, and you know, what libraries will be used in a couple of years' time, that kind of stuff. I wouldn't really do anything majorly different though. I think all the changes with ACF add-ons, ACF Pro, it's all been in the best interest, and it's been really well received as well. Yeah, no, I probably wouldn't change a thing.
Awesome.
So I've got a question.
Yes.
So what's the plan with ACF and the WP REST API? What's in store for that?
Sure. So the REST API is now very much part of WordPress. We've got endpoints for a lot of content and some functionality to customize that content as well. So basically, we just want to get ACF fields into that JSON, into those endpoints, into that JSON data, just to make ACF more available. Obviously, that means we need maybe some tools pages or some filters and actions to specify which content is publicly available, all of that stuff. And does it appear in its own endpoint, or does it append into the existing, you know, post type content? But in a nutshell, just getting the ACF content into there. And there's already a few plugins out there that that connect ACF data into the JSON endpoint API. So I don't think we'll be reinventing the wheel. We'll just putting that functionality into the core. Yeah. Which will be great because I mean the API is so useful, and it is quite new, and not everyone has jumped on that board just because we're so used to doing Ajax calls with admin Ajax and writing our own stuff. But the JSON endpoint of the REST API is definitely the future. Not only for internal use on your own website for Ajax queries, but actually say Google, say external websites, having this kind of structured endpoint is going to be a huge part of how the web is able to read content, I think, going forward. So it's a really important step for sure.
Yeah.
Sounds like you've got a lot on your plate over the next year.
Yeah. Look, I mean, it's a lot, but the funny thing is, I mean, these features can almost be written in a day. When you sit down to write code, it's amazing how much you can achieve. Obviously, there's a lot of testing and etc. But there's big milestones, but the actual code involved is quite small. So it's all very manageable. It's just fun. Hey, they're just really fun milestones. And the only reason why I'm not doing them all right now is because there's all these improvements along the way and small bug fixes that come in and small ideas that grab my attention. It's like, geez, we really need that now. So yeah, but that's part of every project.
Well, you've done a fantastic job, and I know we all appreciate the work that you put into this plugin. Thank you.
You are very welcome, for sure.
Anyone else got any questions?
Just like to thank Elliot for doing such a great favor on all the developers. Yeah, saving them heaps of time. And I actually chose ACF because it was just so simple to add stuff to a post and then just retrieve it in the theme. It was just so simple. I was shocked to just, it was like magic. So yeah, I think that was one of the main reasons why I started using ACF. Just the simplicity factor. It's just crazy.
Yeah. Life shouldn't be difficult. Hey, I mean, yeah, things should be intuitive. Things should make sense. So I'm glad. I'm super glad that you're using it. That's awesome. And thanks for the support.
Most welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Elliot, the wizard. Thanks for your magic.
No worries.
All right, well, if no one has any more questions, are there any last words?
I guess I'll just say, I mean, thanks for having me on the show. That's been cool to hang out. Cool to chat about ACF a little bit and get some, good feedback. It's always nice. But yeah, just like wishing everyone a really good year. I think some really exciting stuff's going to happen, not just with ACF, but just WordPress in general this year and content entry. I think it's just going to be an exciting time to be a WordPress web developer for the next couple of years. So just, yeah, good luck to everyone.
Awesome. All right. See you later.
Cool. See you then.
See ya.
Catch you later.
See you guys.